Hello and welcome, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Soul Stories, because every soul has a story. And today we are going to meet a beautiful soul. Last time on Soul Stories, you all met my beautiful friend, Leanne Hofer. And when Leanne found out that I was doing these soul stories, she said, "Oh, I have a soul you need to meet. You need to meet my friend Madhavi." And so I said, great. So Madhavi and I had a conversation, and of course, we had lots of things in common, but we also have some really cool things, such as our cultural background, that we don't have in common. And I'm super excited to learn all about that. And we are going to meet Madhavi together today. So please welcome my new friend, Madhavi Parik. Madhavi, welcome.
Thank you, Lisa. How are you?
I am fine, thank you.
And thank you for having me here. I'm
Oh,
excited, looking forward to sharing my story with the world.
yay! We're super excited to hear about it. So, you grew up in India. That is completely different than where I grew up. So, I can't wait to hear all about that.
So, yes, I did grow up in India. I came here when I was 23. So, until then, it was life in India. And it was quite unique, which I only found out about more after I came to the US as I started to discover myself. Until then, I was just another person growing up where you grow up, and let it be. Yeah.
Awesome. So where did you grow up in India? Did you grow up in the countryside or in the city?
No, so I grew up in the city. The state I grew up in is called Gujarat. And if you look at the map of India, the state that juts out on the west is the state that I grew up in. The city runs right along the Tropic of Cancer, and it's quite inland. So it had the typical tropical weather of being hot, really hot. And then the evenings are much cooler many times, but a very urban environment, very city environment. And um, yeah, it was, and then I went to a boarding school from there, which was about 5 hours away from home. And it was in the mountains. So, yeah.
Wow. So did you have a big family?
Um, in India, yes, we always have extended family, and, family of families, also family. So I grew up with two sisters, my parents, my two sisters, my grandmother, and my uncle, my dad's brother, and his family. So they were four. So we were about 10 of us in in our flat, is what they called our apartment or condo. And on another floor was my mom's sister and her family, her extended family. So grew up with cousins, and yeah, just a lot of people around us and different. It's multi-generational. So you really have people to go to no matter what. So you grow up with your cousins, who end up being your best friends. They know everything. If you don't like your parents, there's always your aunts and uncles who are taking care of you. Um, and then it's your grandparents are also always around, so you get a lot of wisdom in different ways and helping them, you know, working in the kitchen, for example, but they have a lot more patience with you, or taking a nap with them. You just be by their side, or they're willing to share a little bit of their money to help you, to give you some pocket money to go spend on something which your parents may not give. So yeah, it was very nice to grow up in that extended family.
Wow. I grew up as an only child, so that's like so different for me to think
Mm.
about having so many people around.
Constantly, there's never a dearth of people around you. There's always, your neighbors are looking out for you. I mean, there's just people there's just a lot of people everywhere. No
Wow.
matter what, people are out and about, people are, your neighbors are there, your best friends with their children. You know, even the people who are looking after the condo or doing different things for the flats or whatever, they know your business. So there's not much room to get into trouble.
Wow,
Yeah.
but that must have been kind of a comforting environment. It must have, did it feel safe?
It was always safe.
Yeah.
For the most part, it was always safe. Yeah, I can't think of, but India is a very multi-tiered country in terms of economics as well. So people, there are very, very poor people as well. I was more in the middle class family. Um, so yeah, I didn't think of it as being unsafe in any way. But there are people who were, just as in any culture, we have it here as well. But it's like there is going to be some kind of robberies or things like that just because people need to live.
Yeah.
And when there's a lot of poverty, and the helplessness that comes with poverty is something that is unavoidable to see in India. Yeah, so that was a part of my, I think it helped me in who I am, or it did play a role in who I am today, I think.
Oh,
Yeah,
sure, of
yeah.
course.
And you also see life in all its different stages as a part of the circle of life. So you grow up, you grow up with a lot of people. There are always a lot of births, but then there are also a lot of losses and deaths. And each life is celebrated regardless of whether it is birth or death. And there's many times celebrated together, especially when there is death. There are rituals around that happen, which culminate in a huge dinner for the community. It doesn't matter how big or small it is, a meal for the most part. And there it is, everyone is there from the youngest, the littlest to the oldest. So you see that celebration, that life goes on, the circle of life continues. And it helps in letting go, and it helps in at the long grieving process does help you to allow yourself to process the emotions that come up from losing a loved one. But then ultimately you start moving on. So that was also a big part of my uh, upbringing.
Wow. So do you think that that helps to um, alleviate or at least kind of soften the fear of death?
It does, because the circle of life is such that you don't avoid it,
Mhm.
right? Like but yes, you are proactive if illnesses come, or you want to be safe, you want to do all the things to not die preemptively or early. But at the same time, if there is an illness that's too huge to recover from, for example, then it's kind of accepted that, it's okay. You don't have to hang on um, with, from with just keeping on with artificial ways of living or doing a lot of medicine or things like that. At least that's what I saw. And I did see, growing up, I did see different kinds of deaths, if that's possible. It started with my mom having a pregnancy during Graves' disease, and she was told, and Graves' disease is a hyperthyroidism condition. It's autoimmune, and she got pregnant during that time frame for some reason. I don't have all the details, but then she got pregnant and she was told that she wouldn't carry the pregnancy to term. She did. But then around 2 months, my sister got some kind of fever. And looking back from my medical background, I think that she did have some kind of metabolic disorder that wasn't diagnosed, and that ultimately led to her loss. And, we kind of worked through that, but it wasn't like we've lost. It never made us feel like a huge loss. I don't want to say that it wasn't a huge loss, but it was like we were able to move on. And then when I was about 7 or 8, we had a nanny and she had asthma. And back then we didn't really have very good many medicines for asthma. And one day she had a flare up, and it was a huge flare up of her asthma, and she felt like she was suffocating. And we kind of took her on the balcony to get some fresh air, thinking that would help. And she was just stripping her clothes off just because she couldn't get enough air in. And I was told to go get the doctor from the next building over to come and help her. And I knew that by the time I came back, she wouldn't be there. And so she kind of died on the balcony there. So that was another kind of death that I saw. And then I went with my mom to visit her family afterwards to convey the news and hand over the belongings that she had. And then I had a great grandfather. He was about 103, 104 years old. And he decided that his time on this earth was over. So on day one, he quit taking all his medicines. On day two, he went into a fast with no water or food or anything. He just stopped putting anything in. And on day three, he passed away. So willful death, kind of passing that he chose on his terms. And he was very healthy until then. So that was amazing to see. Um, and then when I was 18, I think I was 18, yes. My father he had uncontrolled hypertension, or it was actually untreated, uncontrolled hypertension. And one day he had a stroke. And it was quite a massive stroke. And he had two back to back, the second one a week later, and it kind of put him in a coma. But my mom, and then he was taken to another center, to another hospital in Bombay. Mumbai is what it's called now, um, for better care. But we couldn't complete all the testing, and he went into coma, and then he became paralyzed from his neck down. We got him home, and he stayed with us for the next 2 years. My mom became his primary caregiver. And with the combination of conventional or allopathic medicine is what it was called. We call it conventional medicine here, and Eastern medicine, and with a lot of hands-on care. He stayed with us for 2 years, not a single bed sore. Um, just like he was really well taken care of by my mom being the primary caregiver. And that kind of resilience that I saw as the caregiver and the helplessness of him, like of being a care receiver. And was it helplessness? Maybe here we would call it helplessness versus being sick, and this is what you do, right? You receive the care and you accept it the way it is given to you. Could be another way of seeing it. So all of that put together with this being the final incident made, I knew that I wanted to practice medicine. And I think that was one of the things I always knew about myself, is that I wanted to practice medicine. And the other thing I knew was I was going to meditate, but I didn't know how I was going to do it. So yeah, so that was until my dad passed away when I was about 22. And then I finished my studies there, and I came to this country to get married.
Wow. So so when you went off to boarding school, was that kind of a like a shock to leave your family and go to the school?
It was. So I was 9, almost 10 years old when I was sent off to a boarding school for better education. India being a colonial country, it was ruled by the British. So the emphasis on English language was and is high. So the boarding school was a way to get good education, and especially to be fluent in English and to be able to make your mark in the world, because that helps you move on um, in your career. Uh, the so religion in India, many people are culturally religious. They're not religious in terms of organized. It's just a part of you, day to day kind of thing. It's not like this is the way it is. And Hinduism being a polytheistic, Hinduism and all its offshoots, whether they are sects or whether they're offshoots, different religions coming off of it, being a polytheistic religion, it is not, there is no one book or no dogma to go by. It's more a way of life. So it becomes a way of progressing based on how ready you are, wherever you are. So you can make it a ritualistic religion, or you can make it a spiritual religion, and that it just you become a bigger, better person as you go along. So it's more of an inward journey, trying to find God within you, being the God being your higher self that is capable of being God, versus versus God being a separate entity.
Right.
So all the different images in that polytheistic religion are images of either something that you want to uh, make better in yourself, right? Like if you have the gift of podcasting and you just want to be a better podcaster, better interviewer, you can want to continue enhancing that, then that is one image that can be created in so many different ways in our personalities and temperaments. Or if I have any weaknesses, then how do I overcome those weaknesses? That, I see a God with those things, and how did that God overcome that weakness or that flaw? That is Hinduism, to me at least, understanding. Everyone will give different explanations. Um, and so it's just a way of life. It's just like, it's not something that you I don't know how to say it, but it's not something that you are. It's not a label sort of thing. It's just the way it is. And then I went to a Catholic boarding school.
Wow, that must have been quite the shock.
And I think from the very beginning, I was more of the spiritual kind of person. I loved temples. I loved like those kind of places that had those higher vibes, or, just where there is something to go to, the source or whatever you want to call it, where there is something bigger than you that kind of gives you the strength, that gives you the direction that you need. So in in the boarding school, the chapel became my go-to place, and I would just sit in the corner and kind of, so hear the hymns. They're very peaceful, or just be. But it is difficult because it's a very different mindset. In Like, there are so many expectations that if and guilt was another thing that comes up uh in Christianity a lot. And the religion I grew up at home is hard on penance as well, so there was guilt there. So you kind of multiply the guilt from two religions to a sensitive person. So I felt like if I didn't succeed, it was all my fault. So it was always my fault, and I was always praying for God to come and fix me. But, if I didn't fix myself, um, it's now that I can say that. But at that time, I didn't understand why I was so messed up. Like, why wasn't I enough? Why wasn't I perfect enough? Why weren't things going my way? Why couldn't I just get like, just be happy. Why couldn't I be the best friend to everybody? Why couldn't I, why didn't I have this? So many things like that were what shaped my upbringing as well. So that, and I stayed in the boarding school for about 6 or 7 years, um, until I was 16. And then I came back into society. So being in a boarding school, it was for 9 months straight. My parents did come to visit, but it was 9 months straight. So you are pulled out from the fabric of life. You're very protected. You're in a bubble with people, with girls your age. And it becomes a very homogeneous group, versus in India, the outside society is so vast. It's so vivid, right? Like it's so diverse. It's so many things, like, and you miss out on all of that. So assimilating into society there was also difficult when we came back home for vacation.
Oh my,
Um, yeah, but my English was good.
oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, so all of those kind of experiences start forming, like they're forming who you are. But at the same time, you are a child, so you really don't know what that is doing, right? Like you know, it's just shaping your mind, it's conditioning your mind, but at the same time, there is no other information or data point to use it against until you start living on your own. And that's when you start to recognize patterns, understand things. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. I must have been Hindu in some other lifetime at some point, because that what you described about God and being the higher self,
Right.
that's exactly how I see it now. And I wasn't able to see that for a very long time
Right.
growing up in a Christian society. And um, when I was very little, I had the experience of being one with God, being in
Hmm.
space of unconditional love and light,
Wow.
knowing that that's what God is.
Hmm.
And then, you know, being in my body and, being dragged off to church every Sunday and being told what God is. I'm like, that's not it. Like, but
Right. Right.
yeah, it was quite confusing.
Right. But we go along because we're children.
Right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's like you kind of have to do what you have to do to fit in
Correct.
and, you know, maintain peace. Wow.
Hmm.
Yeah. What an interesting background. I love that.
Yeah. And to me, it all came together though much afterwards. Like I did not know any of this was happening per se. Like you lived through it, but at the same time, I didn't know anything was happening. And then I got married and I had to come here. Um, like I mentioned, there were three things I knew when I was growing up. I just had it in me intuitively. I never said it out loud or anything, but it's afterwards that I realized is one, I was going to come to America. Two, I was going to practice medicine. And three, I was going to meditate. And all three happened through marriage. And so I came here when I was 23. got I got into an Indian extended family through my husband's side. Soon after coming here, his parents, his sisters, it was just one big extended family. The good thing though with that family was that um, they are close knit, and yet they allow space for you to be who you are. Very non-judgmental. They have their opinions for sure, but but very non-judgmental, and very progressive. So yes, they were traditional in the sense that they were rooted in their culture in being Indian. That was not a problem to them like it was for me, but at the same time, very progressive in their thought process, very accepting. So that kind of allowed me to find myself. It gave me room to figure out, like, first I had to know that I was um, not secure in myself. Um, I knew English, but I didn't know the ways of the world. I didn't know the Indian culture, the Indian tradition, not traditions, but more the culture and the value of uh, of that culture. Like, what did it bring? And every culture has its strengths, right? And it's like wherever we are, whatever culture it is, if we find ourselves in our own culture, then it doesn't matter where we are placed, because then we are rooted. So I had to find my roots in that, and the people I was surrounded by did allow me that space and some fertilizer for finding myself. So that allowed me to grow. I did already have children very young, into a marriage and at a very young age. So at that time, because I was still not quite rooted, I was trying to assimilate into the American culture through my work. And that's where I found my belonging, because I could connect with those with people. And usually most of them were to be moms, early moms, just like I was. And so they took me under their wings and kind of allowed me to explore being American. Uh, trying to get into sports leagues of for my children, or just trying to, what hobbies do I pursue for them, which extracurricular activities would be good. So all of those things happened for about 10 years. Yeah. While I worked. And then I found out about the physician assistant profession in this country. And that's when I knew that that's what I would do. I did not I was exploring which medical field to go into, exploring medicine as the physician route, or even physical therapy, pharmacy, all of those other allied health fields. But none of them seemed to fit except for becoming a physician. But I couldn't transport the entire extended family to wherever I went, and it would be a lot of uprooting, and I couldn't go away from my children because they were much younger. They were in elementary school. So when I found out about the PA profession, I was lucky enough to get into a school that was nearby, and spent 4 years to to do that. And I'm so grateful for that. I commuted. I relied on my extended family to take care of the children. Ignorance is bliss, because I didn't know what I was doing by putting my children, to like taking care of me before my children, like leaving them to my in-laws or my mother, or to a dad who didn't know how to be a dad at that time. Um, all of that, but they were safe. So I think for children, ultimately, it's safety. It's not a matter of which routine they follow, or, what food they're given, all of that. As long as they're safe and loved, that's what they remember. And that's what makes them grow up into beautiful people, So yeah, I did that for 4 years. I commuted, but and I was a long distance parent for one full year, but I became a PA, and I'm glad I am now. But if I had to do it all over again, and if I was going to put some thought into it, I don't think I would do that. I would pick my children over becoming doing my own, like pursuing my own career.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of crazy how the society is set up, and
Hmm.
how earning a living is so
Right.
important when we're clearly already living and we're
Right.
already here, and it's
Right.
all just about this money and how do we work and how do we, it's really very confusing.
It is.
What do you find is the difference, or is there a difference in that respect between India and here?
So in India, now it's changing, but it was before that. Once you got married and once you had children, moms ran the household, and they did not have a say into what they wanted to do.
Hmm.
So, yeah, my mom did have a job when right before marriage, but once they got married, my dad said, "You're not working anymore." So India is a chauvinistic, patriarchal kind of culture, and it men do rule the world there. So that was not, I don't think, and in India, what we have here in America, that if you are willing to put in the time, the effort, the work, then you can do whatever you want. It's not as easily available there. So here I can pick up, my pieces at any time in my journey and still be able to go wherever I want to go. It's not possible in India. So I couldn't get good grades, partly because I was taking care of, with my dad being ill, I was the primary breadwinner while my mom was taking care of him, because I was the oldest and I had two younger sisters. So I didn't get good grades to get into medicine. And then if I couldn't pursue medicine at that time, once I got married, I would definitely not be able to pursue any education. And it was like once I came here, I worked for almost 10 years and then found, and then was able to get into PA school, get my undergrad degree because I was a foreign student, get into PA school and accomplish everything along the way. And that was past 35 years of age.
Wow, good for you. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. But that wouldn't have been possible in India. So definitely America does have the freedom for us to be who we want to be.
Wow. So how did you make that transition from India to America? How did you end up coming to America?
I came to America to get married. Um, my so being the oldest, the burden is on you to do well. And to do well meant to be married into a good family as a girl, as a female. So long story short, my mom sent me here with a dance troupe to perform for the Indian community. We were about 25 girls and then a band of musicians, and we performed for the Indian community, what we call folk dances of India. And one of our pit stops was in Charlotte. And at the end of the show, when we were being introduced to the audience, one of my boarding school friends heard my name, and she came to meet me, and then she invited me over to her house to spend a couple of days while we were in Charlotte, to spend a couple of days with her. And uh, there she was sharing an apartment with her brother, my now husband, and another friend, and that's how I met my now husband. But it was he had to come to drop me off at the Greyhound station because that's how we traveled. 30 of us, we can occupy the whole bus, it becomes ours. uh, he came to drop me off, and he found out that my mom's good friend, whom I was going to visit at some point during that trip in Chicago, is his first cousin.
Oh, wow.
And she was going to match me up or try to match me up with some guys here because life in America is definitely better financially and work-wise, than it was in India. And when I told her that I met your cousin because he was eligible, I was in the market, I would say. Uh, they asked him, he said yes, because he said yes, I was made to say yes. And so we got engaged about a day and a half, 2 days before I left back for India, at his sister's place. Back then, we had to make overseas calls. They were all landline calls, right? Overseas calls were so expensive. He wasn't making that much money. So we didn't really communicate once I got back to India. He wasn't a letter writer. So I would write like 10 letters, maybe get one. So
Wow.
um, yeah, so then came back 13 months later or 15 months later to get married.
Wow. What was that like when you went back to India and you're engaged, and
Yeah.
but you're back in India. Like,
Not good on my end. Good for him. He was fine. He was ready to get like he's accepting. He was ready with whatever is and no anxiety, no stress. I went back to India and I wasn't ready to get married. I did not, I was just beginning to find myself. I wanted to figure out, but I was still very, excuse me, I was still very naive. So I was kind of going along with societal, you just live in the society you're in, right? Like without much awareness.
mm,
You just live life. You're just like going with the flow. You're just another current there kind of thing. Um, but as time got closer for me to come, like doing shopping up for coming here, and the marriage was going to be in America. Um, so as I was doing shopping, like in September, I got married in December. So beginning of like August, September, anxiety started kicking in. And then I really like it was panic attacks, it was weight loss, it was severe acid reflux, all of that. Like it started sitting in my body
sure.
and just did not like the way I felt, and but still had to come. And out initially I was going to come alone, just by myself, because we didn't have the money to have a big wedding or anything. Um, but then ultimately my mom decided to come with me. We got married here in December. Friends made the wedding, and it's still a lovely memory for all of them except me. And now it's okay, but at that time it wasn't. Like I was just going along with the flow. Got married, had children very early on, and all of life's experiences from the beginning, from childhood until like through marriage, having children at an early age, all of that was residing in my body, but then it started to speak up in the form of pain, like just more like fibromyalgia kind of pain is what I would call it. It's just inflammation sitting there. You're never like feeling good because there's always something that's hurting, but you don't connect it with your heart space, right? It's just sitting in your body, and you think, it- I mean, you just have pain.
Right.
And then one day, one of the things in my upbringing was that I had very dominating parents. So it was like you are to be seen and you are to be seen strong, but you are never to be heard. So you make your mark on this world by becoming perfect, but you'll never be good enough.
I can relate to that.
So yeah, so in that process, that was how unconsciously, subconsciously, I was raising my children as well. That authority, like I'm the parent, this is what you do. And you go to bed, like there are no ifs, ands, or buts. Like I am running the show, and you are going to be my puppet because that's what I tell you to be. And there was one incident when my daughter was in sixth grade, which was a year after I graduated from PA school, where I distinctly remember feeling that I was turning into my parents all over again. And it hit me that I did not want to lose my children the way I was lost to my parents. And I had to do something. And a lot, I don't know what the sequence of events is, but then I came across in one of the community magazines that there was going to be a talk about a specific meditation technique called Vipassana meditation, insight meditation. And there was going to be a talk, and it's 10 days of complete silence that they talk about. And that is what appealed to me. So coming from India with those religions, that the other thing is that it's everything can become corrupt. The more power there is, the more things can become corrupt. And religion is definitely one of those things, just like politics is, right? Or corporations are.
Exactly.
So I did not want in my meditation, one of the things I was clear about was that I did not want a guru or a leader to follow. I had to be in charge of myself. So when I read about this 10-day complete silence technique, where it was about me, myself, and I versus anyone else, like it had to be taught to me, but beyond that, it was all up to me. I said, this is what I'm going to practice. So there was a retreat close by, 3 hours away, and I went to my first one in 2002. 10 days. It was so profound, so much pain that resides in your nervous system comes up because you're sitting still. Nothing is going in through your senses. So it's 10 days. You start the first 3 days with trying to improve your focus and concentration through your breath by observing your breath as is, coming in, going out, not trying to change it. So that's a completely different emphasis, right? Like you're just observing, trying to observe life without reacting. You're just observing it, being a witness to what is happening. And then from there, the technique goes on to observing your body sensations from top to bottom, but again, observing so you're not reacting. And through that, you get a glimpse into your mind as to how it's working. So yeah, you get a glimpse into cause and effect, that if I do this, this is the chain of reactions that takes me to this, and that becomes the cause again to become another chain of reactions, right? So you're seeing firsthand sort of the impact of cause and effect becoming more cause, becoming cause again and again and again, leading to reaction. And if you observe yourself instead of reacting to it, then it's more, and from once you observe yourself and not react to it, then whenever you respond to it, it's more of an action instead of a reaction. And that changes the game and it changes the outcomes.
Right.
Right. So it wasn't easy, not one bit easy, because that's what you're observing, things that are coming up. You're not allowed. So in those 10 days of complete silence, you don't talk, you don't read, you don't write, you don't do anything. You're just observing, because if I'm writing, then I may go back to what I've written and I'm going to evoke again, go back to my past versus staying in the here and now as much as possible. Not that your mind is going to stay here and now forever. You have to keep training it with your breath to kind of come back to the here and now. Right? It's not like you're devoid of thoughts. Meditation is not being devoid of thoughts. Meditation is learning to not react as things are happening to me. Excuse me, that's how I understand things. So I went to that, and from there it brought up a lot more things. And but I continued that journey on meditation, and I saw that, the road to peace is a violent one, right? It brings up so much turmoil within you. Like and you have to deal with it, because if you don't deal with it, then it's going to continue to haunt you.
Exactly.
It's going to continue to manifest in so many different ways. So that is how I observed what was happening in my body with all these past experiences that I had gone through. But slowly they began to work themselves out.
Mhm.
And then I also started working as a PA, as a physician assistant. And my first job was in the field of cancer medicine, oncology. And that's where I saw another form of healing. Like, how do patients heal? Like, not everyone can do a 10-day course. Not everyone knows about a 10-day course. Everyone's path is different. People come from all different walks. But how is it that these people are healing is also what I was beginning to see. What does community support look like? What is it about that person that makes them resilient enough to go through treatment? What makes them accept their grave diagnosis the way they do? How are family members holding on to the patient that they cannot let go, even if they are willing to let go. So observing all of that also became a part of my healing journey. And what are the techniques that works for some people but not for other people? So why does massage work really well for somebody while theater works really well for another person? Right? Like introverts, extroverts, just of religion, non-religion, ignorance, so much education. Like what is it that makes us heal or not heal is ultimately my interest. Of course, I was learning other things along the way, but that was ultimately my interest. And I began to incorporate some of that into my healing as well. And then you have the good fortune of having mentors who also kind of see a little bit in you that you don't see in yourself, right? And everyone can be a mentor in that sense. Your hard experiences, your negative experiences can also be even more powerful teachers than all the happiness that you've had in your life, right? So all of that was coming together now slowly for me. It was like all the pieces of the puzzle that I was from childhood to adult to who I was, whoever I am right now. All of that kind of fits into it. And I was able to piece it together. And so I was incorporating a little bit of that, and especially from my experience with death in my childhood and seeing all of that, I was able to have those difficult conversations with my patients, which many people are not comfortable doing. Even the physicians are not comfortable doing, like telling them, you need to stop treatment. Maybe we're not getting anywhere. It's okay to die, kind of thing. Like it's not giving up. It's like allow yourself to surrender, feel the peace, don't fight anymore. Because we're constantly at war with ourselves ultimately. Just it's so much negative energy. So I was able to have those conversations. And then I became more comfortable with myself the more I saw the result out of it. Like if a patient was finally comfortable, it made me feel confident enough that I have something that could help somebody. And it's not that I want to help somebody, because along the way, I also realized that if I don't help myself, I can't help anyone. Who am I kidding? Right? Like I have to take care of myself, and I have to love myself, and I have to be kind to myself. Only then that kindness is going to come out for real. It's going to be more authentic. Otherwise, I'm just saying these words and I'm just another person. Oh, so you're so good, and oh, you're so nice, and and not feeling it from within kind of person. So that's where I began to take more and more liberty to express myself to the patient that, look, this is what you need to do, or this is not working, or let's try this, or where is this decision coming from? Why are you so afraid? Or why do you want to be so controlling? Or look, this is not safe for you. Whatever it may be, I became more confident in being able to say that. And that led to a better connection with the patients as well. So it becomes a two-way street when you're authentic, when you're vulnerable with yourself and then with others. So that kind of got me into integrative oncology, where then I heard a lecture by Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, who was a palliative physician. She came, I think she was Swiss, or no, she was German, but then she lived in Germany. But then she came to America. So she brought the 5 stages of grief into our Western medicine. That, there's acceptance, there's denial, there's going to be anger. Allow yourself to feel those 5 stages. Now, in a large community like India, you feel that, but it's like so diluted, so that it's not a big deal, right? You do have anger, you accept it, but anger is not to be avoided. You will miss your loved one, but it's okay. But you're still a part of the circle of life. So it's like the the importance of that becomes, it's not an issue that we hold on to. It's all part of life that you accept, right? And it's all part of one, like it's all melded in together. It's not a separate grief is here, this is here, this is here kind of thing. So grief is mixed in with happiness, and they both reside with each other, right? And anger and kindness reside with each other. Like I can get angry at you, but then I let go, and then we are still family and we're still friends, and life goes on. So when we don't label and we don't compartmentalize, then that helps in moving on so much more. It makes it much easier, right? So Elizabeth Kubler-Ross talks about the body being 4 quadrants: the physical, the spiritual, the intellectual, and the emotional. And when all those 4 quadrants are in harmony with each other, when they're synchronized, then we are at harmony with ourselves. Then it doesn't matter the outcome, because we are resilient enough to kind of accept it. We don't have to lose hope, because we are again accepting. We don't have expectations in the true sense of the word, that we are surrendering. We are at peace with whatever is, because I can accept whatever the outcome is. Those kind of things. I don't have expectations. So the 4 quadrants of the body model kind of really spoke to me, because I knew that through my physical body, I was healing my soul. So I was doing acupuncture, I was doing myofascial release therapy, I was doing massage therapy, I tried psychotherapy, but that didn't quite go well for me. I did hypnotherapy. I couldn't, I was too much in charge of myself to let go. That's where I don't practice what I preach. But I did all of those kind of things. And I was also trying to learn loving kindness towards myself, let go of the guilt, let go of that anger, and trying to forgive people, even if they did wrong. So it didn't absolve them of their deeds, but at least I was no longer carrying that anger towards them. So reminding myself of all of those things, I saw that 4 quadrant of the body kind of just helped me word what I was doing already. So that's how I started integrating my practice with my patients, looking at all 4 components, or making them aware of those 4 components, because some of us can be overly religious and still be sick, right? Some of us can be overly emotional and not use our head space, the intellectual space, or vice versa. Some are very cerebral and they have no idea where the heart is in all of this. And then when they start putting the head and the heart together is when they get all out of control, because they have no idea what the body is doing. And right, it's quite interesting to see all that. And I was seeing it across my patient population in all different kinds. And so it just kind of allowed me to put things together for myself and for others. And that's how I was practicing oncology, or still do.
Wow, that's amazing. It seems to me that there's, especially in America, there's a huge fear of death.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's a big disconnect between who we are as souls and who we are as humans.
Mm-hmm.
And it causes a
Mm-hmm.
massive crisis inside when
Correct.
we come to face death, or
Mm-hmm.
when someone around us dies. It
Mm-hmm.
causes so much heartbreak and
Anger.
yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. Do you think that that your Hindu upbringing has helped you to breach that gap with your patients as well, to help them to start tuning in to the truth of who they are and alleviate some of that fear?
I try to. Depending upon the stage of cancer that they come to me with, right? Like if it's an early stage cancer, then I'm like, this is not a death sentence. This is a wake up call.
Mhm.
But I also put in like none of us are leaving this earth alive to summit the physical body, right? So your spirit lives on, your soul lives on, but physically, none of us, all of us are going out the same way. So we might as well live properly right now, right? And along the way, address all of these things about life, big life, with a capital L. Let's explore all of that, that will allow you to heal.
Mhm.
And, so by becoming healthier physically, emotionally, spiritually, let's allow ourselves to kind of accept whatever comes our way and however it comes, and understand the true meaning of what death is. Because every moment we are like letting what we let go. None of us are ever the same from one moment to another, right? And so kind of, if someone is ready for it, you kind of talk philosophically, but otherwise you talk like this, bring in examples. If it is towards more advanced cancer, then it's also again the same sentence basically, but more in a process of surrendering and letting go instead of continuing to fight. Like, how long are you going to fight, and for at what cost, and for what are you fighting? You have to know what you're fighting for before you fight, right? Otherwise, it's just like we're just wasting energy.
Right. And
So if you have a very young one to look after, yes, we'll do everything we can to take care of you. But at the same time, if you are at a place where, your responsibilities on this earth are taken care of, then maybe we can look at it with a different perspective.
Mhm.
So yes, the Hinduism helped in my meditation practice, which is a very deconstructive practice, right? Like as you're sitting there observing yourself, like this event led to this, but then you have the time and space to open it up. It opens because you're not reacting to it, and as you open it up, you start seeing the way it manifested, right? Like if I was afraid of something, that's of that something was is not the fear, right? Like the snake is not the fear if I'm afraid of snakes. So then as I sit and observe myself, then I can let go of the snake, and then I can really observe the fear. And then from that, the fear starts deconstructing itself, and it can lead you to your childhood, for example, or it can lead you to something else, or it can lead you to so many, but it opens up your world for you,
Mhm.
right? And then you answer your questions, but in a way that you're not ruminating, you're answering questions in a way that reveal themselves, that reveal the wisdom that is innate in all of us.
Yeah, there's so much fear in that word cancer
Correct.
that it's, it really sends that charge through the body.
Right.
And it becomes, once, when you're in that fear,
Right.
it becomes really, really difficult to heal.
Right. Exactly.
My perception is we have to be at peace
Correct.
in order to heal.
Correct.
And you know the the current model is really, you know based in fear.
Correct.
So yeah,
Right.
it's so beautiful that you can help people overcome that, and give them some tools.
Right. At least make them aware of it. The work is theirs to do.
Yeah.
We each have our own work to do, right? Like I can show the way, or I can be along your side, but I cannot do the work for you. So that is another thing that I also bring, because our medical system has made it such that it's both ways, that we entrust everything into the doctors and expect them to take care of it. And then the doctors, or, the medical system says, I don't know enough. I'm sorry, but we don't say I don't know, right? Like you do what I tell you to do, and otherwise you're going to die yesterday or something, like, or you're going to get side effects, or you're going to get sick, or whatever it is that they tell you. And it's just a back and forth of fear exchange that we are constantly doing. And when things don't go our way, then we are so out of control with ourselves. Yeah. So that is where I got laid off last year, and I decided to start my own clinical coaching practice for oncology patients to help them put all this together, to help them on their journey, whether it's from the time of diagnosis, where I feel like they're put on a conveyor belt of appointments, like one thing after another, and they have no idea what to do, how to assimilate or make sense of that information, or through treatment, where it's so many side effects that they're experiencing and they're fighting through. Again, the word fight keeps coming up, and then into survivorship, where we learn to kind of bring those four quadrants together and see how we can integrate it all to continue living and make this as just one part of the story and not the entire story, and not let it be your narrative of the story constantly. So
Yeah.
integrating it all is now what I do to help people on that cancer journey, and then bridge the gap between the conventional space and the alternative and complementary space and the Dr. Google space, as I call it, because it's so deep and wide
Mhm.
that people get lost on that end too.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's quite the journey.
It is.
Wow. Well, this has been just so interesting, Madhavi. Thank you so
Thank you.
much for
Thank
sharing
you. Thank
your
you.
your journey with us. Thank you for sharing your story. Even though our stories are so different, all of us, you know, the more we share our stories, the more similarities we find. And, you know,
That is so true.
there's not such a huge gap between us. We're all these
Correct.
grand beings of light having this experience here on earth. We can start to remember that we are God also. We are
Hmm.
individuated aspects of the eternal one. And
Hmm.
we start to realize that that is our similarity.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. That-
Beautiful. So now your practice is in Charlotte, North Carolina?
So I am based in Charlotte, North Carolina, but my practice is virtual.
Awesome.
People can find me through my website, www.ispiehealth.com. And that SPI is the acronym for the spiritual, physical, intellectual, emotional, and the I is for integrative. So integrating all of that into the journey, whether it's from the time of diagnosis through treatment and beyond, survivorship. I do offer a free 15-minute introductory call for me to be able to explain the model and see if we are a good fit. And yeah, uh, that's how I work.
Fantastic. Yeah,
Yes,
the internet is a beautiful thing.
it is a beautiful thing. Zoom is a beautiful thing to allowing us to connect.
Exactly.
Yes, yes, it has brought people together.
It certainly has.
Yes, yes,
When those of us with higher consciousness, good intention, use the AI stuff for our better purposes of making the world a better place, it can
right.
certainly do that.
Absolutely, absolutely. And the world is a beautiful place. There's
It
so many good things,
exactly.
and it's so fun if we remain curious.
That's it. You got it. Life is
Yeah,
meant to be lived. We're meant to
right.
enjoy ourselves.
Absolutely.
It's definitely not
Yes.
meant to be a battle.
Oh, yes. The fewer battles, the better off. Yes. Yes.
Indeed.
Yes.
Wow.
But thank you so much for having me on your show
You are so
and
welcome. Thank you
giving me the space.
for your presence.
Yes.
So so as you've been watching the show, if you would like to get in touch with Madhvi, please check out the link, which will be in the show notes. And you will be able to just click the link and get to her website so you can learn more about her I Spy technique. We love it. Thank you so much,
Thank you.
we really appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a
So,
good one.
yeah, so my name is Lisa Warner, and I am the author of The Simplicity of Self-Healing. You can all find me at connectingyoutoyou.com. So thank you all for joining us for another episode of Soul Stories, because every soul has a story, and your story is worth telling. So thank you all for joining us today. And please, if you have any interest in reaching out to Madhavi, please reach out to her. She's a beautiful soul with a beautiful story and is willing to help you make your story better. Thanks so much, everyone. Until next time, create for yourselves a great story because you can. Bye for now.